Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet. This review is brought to you in part by Rogers Hobby Center in Saginaw, Michigan, where the fun begins. This review covers the 1932 Ford Vicky Jalopy stock car. It's a 125 scale kit from AMT number 21710. Now, the 32 Ford was an all-new design that was the first to include an affordable V8 engine in many body styles and is one of the most popular. Issued in 2006 and still available at online auctions, this dirt track race car's repackaging will redirect you to resin part suppliers. The Jalopy version shown on the box art cannot be built with just the parts in the kit. Replicas and Miniatures Company was cited on the Jalopy instructions guide about some of the parts, but a call to them determined that those parts are mostly no longer stocked, and the cost would be just about equal the price of the kit. So we'll show you how to salvage your Jalopy kit, and using some spare parts and a little scratch building to make an awesome modern 32 deuce street rod. Now, the kit is molded in white chrome and clear, and it includes 136 pieces, including 24 parts that came with the Phaeton or the drag versions, not used in the building of this stock Victoria kit. Now, these parts aren't shown in the instructions either. The parts numbers on the sprues also do not correlate to the instructions. So watch the review here so you can see what the parts look like. Now, the finished kit measures 6 inches long by 2 3/4 inches wide and 3 inches high. Oh, hey, that's Newt knocking on the glass there. You got a question, Newt? Newt's our program director.
This car doesn't look anything like the one on the box. Why is that?
That's because the car on the box is a stock car, a dirt racer. They used to call them Jalopys, but those parts to build it weren't in the kit, so it was modified using the basic Victoria kit parts to make this gorgeous-looking street rod.
So, if I wanted to build it like the car on the box, how would I go about doing that?
The short answer is a lot of scratch building. You'd have to make a lot of these parts yourself, including the wheels and probably even the tires, and resource them as well as any of the other pieces that are missing from the kit from resin sources like replicas and miniatures. That's just about the only way to reproduce that box art kit. We'll be using mostly just the good old-fashioned Tester's tube glue for most of the adhesive here, and some white glue for the headlights. And as you can see, there's quite a few parts here, but some of them aren't used in the construction of this kit. Can't be, because those versions don't have all the parts. There's some drag parts on here too for engines, for the engine, but most of the Phaeton parts are still on the trees. Now, when you're going through this review, realize that it takes an experienced builder because you'll be doing some scratch building, but in the end, it's really a nice little diversion or a stretch for you if you want to increase your skills. Please also, any of the products or things that you see used in the review, to heed the manufacturer's safety and use guidelines for using those items. One real bonus for this kit was all the colorful decals that were supplied for it, just in case you decided to build the Jalopy, and really any other version. There's some nice flames there, etc. There's also some authentic looking race car decals. So if you want to make one of those, then they're in the kit, and looks like a setting solution might be advised for some of the larger ones. Look in the kit for these parts to build what's called custom version engine for the model, and we'll be using that for our kit too. The kit comes with a nifty little engine stand, and I painted the block and the heads Italian red, and the transmission and the fuel pump steel color. The motor mounts are black, and this is the first stages of the engine assembly. Like most of the early AMT kits, there were two engine choices.
Now the starter was also painted black, and here's the complete engine. The intake manifold is aluminum, the carburetor is a goldish tone, and the top of the distributor is flat black. The exhaust manifolds are steel, and I sprayed some alclad chrome on the air cleaner and pulleys, and then added some flat black to the fan belt. I painted the recesses of the valve covers a red color, and then I just wiped off the top of the fins there for some added detail to expose that chrome look. Here's another view, and the oil pan and the valve covers are chrome, so I added the chrome to the air cleaner and the pulleys because custom engines just seem to need more chrome. Here's the other side of the engine. It looks pretty nice, and there's an upper radiator hose shown in the instructions that I've foregone that to be installed later after the engine and the radiator are located together so that they fit properly. Locate the parts for the suspension and the chassis, and we'll be putting those together. The frame includes a couple of mold marks and sink marks, and also you see here the black line indicates a parting line that needs to be scraped off and then smoothed out with some sanding sticks. And it appears on both sides of the frame, so take a look for those and clean those up as well as you can. Now, you'll also notice there's a sink mark here that needs to be filled on the right side, and there's actually one on the other side too. So I just filled those with some modeling putty and smoothed those out before I did to some of the paint. In this next step, I decided to replace the metal axle, which is shown in the instructions, with a pair of the plastic axles that are left over from earlier days of this mold. So I used one of the plastic axles there, and I cut it down and glued it to the axle stubs to the brakes there. And this gives a more realistic front suspension look. And then after assembling the front suspension and the rear suspension pieces, they're pretty straightforward, I sprayed it with some alclad chrome, and that was used on the front and rear because I think it just looks a little better for a street rod. For this model, I used a brand of paint. It's an enamel paint called One Shot, and I chose the 100L Vermilion shade and sprayed it with an airbrush to finish the frame, and later on the body color is the same. Now, it's pretty shiny, it's very opaque and covers well, and I've gotten familiar with it. Now the bottom of the floor then is painted flat black, and this shows a modification made to the bottom of the frame where the front suspension mounts. I trimmed the cross member where the axle mounts to the lower front, and then the way the front suspension mounts without trimming would have the front of the car sitting too high, which would have been okay for a 60s hot rod or a street rod, but for street rods now you want a little rake. Now you can see the suspension pieces are mounted there, and also remember you got to scrape off any chrome or paint to the areas you're going to glue together for good adhesion. And the bottom of the floor pan again is black. The drive shaft there is attached already, and it's painted flat black too. Now the photo shows where the bottom of the chassis and the front and rear assemblies are mounted, and also mounted is the bottom of the gas tank there. Now the exhaust was painted silver and added to the bottom frame at this time. Now here's another modification that I made to bring the street rod up to date. Back in the 70s when this kit was made, the axles or the wide street tires kind of stick out from the fenders, but today people tend to tuck those in. So I simply shortened the metal axle shaft there and the stubs on the ends of the axle housing about 1/8 inch in order to bring those tires in closer. The engine can be installed next, so locate the gluing points there. You'll see where the mounts are in contact with the motor mounts, and go ahead, scrape the glue off, and make sure that that stays sitting symmetrical and straight up and down for a vertical alignment as the glue dries. Now there's a hole here that's used to mount the horn on the original Vicky, and most of the modern street rods bringing this up to date would fill that or have a fender without it, and have an internal horn so that you get a nice clean look. And we're going to be doing that for the entire model. The supports here, the braces that are kind of marked with Sharpie marker here, will be removed now, and then clean the edges up where those are attached. They're there for strength so that the model doesn't get broken or warped while it's in the box before you open it. Now this also is something I changed. The front spreader bar here is a rectangle, and on the real cars they're around almost like a small axle or a drive shaft. They're round, so I'm going to replace that, and I'm going to remove that. And I used a piece of chrome side pipe from my parts box, and you just need something that's about the same diameter as the spare tire carrier brace back there. And you can see in the finished photos it's much more realistic than the squared off spreader that came with it. As I mentioned, we're going to clean this look up, and the rear bumper mounts were removed because we're not going to be using bumpers on this car. The areas where the spare tire mount goes will be opened to use more of the parts box side pipes to replace the spreader bar in front there. And this will be more in the style of modern street rods. So I went ahead and, as I mentioned, I clipped off the bumper supports there in the front too. So I've sprayed the fenders with the same paint as the frame. That's that vermilion one-shot paint, and you can see the chrome spreader bar there in front. Also, the the forward portion of the floorboard is glued into place there. That's the white part that'll need to be painted, and the step boards there on the running boards, those are painted a flat black. Now we can get out the seats and start working on that interior too. And you can see the top of the seat backs here, around the top there. In this case, they're on the bottom of the photo. There's some flash there. You're going to need to trim that off, clean those up. So here are the parts that you need to assemble the front seats after trimming the flash. And once you've got the floor and the seats painted, and I used a one-shot tan color for that, and I saw some areas that needed cleaning up with sandpaper. So also shown here are the shifter and the parking brake handle, which are installed into the front floorboard. So after I cleaned up the seats and repainted those and painted the forward floorboard, you can see that they've been installed. So go ahead and glue those into place. And I put a little orange on the shift knob there to kind of match the interior. Can work with the dashboard now. So we're going to paint that orange, and once it gets dried, I removed the steering column as well. And also note that the gauge detail. Now, I found a photo online of a modern street rod gauge panel for this kind of vehicle, so I sized it and to cover the stock gauge area, and attached it with some clear white glue, just to give it a cleaner, more modern look. So to replace that bulky looking steering column, I decided to use an old exhaust piece from my parts box, but you can use evergreen tubing and rod. So I sized it up and cut off the excess there to make it fit my model. I painted the column mask jacket in aluminum color along with the spokes, and I painted the steering wheel itself tan to match the interior. Now I had to get a little piece of scrap plastic and make a column mount, so you can see that installed here, and then touch up the paint for the dashboard. But I just drilled a hole in there to match it to, and then mounted the entire thing to the interior tub, and then onto the floor at the base there in the firewall. Also note the pedals have been installed, and the crank handles have been highlighted with a little chrome silver pen, so that you can see those. It's a fairly basic interior, but you can dress it up as best you can. The tires included in this kit are solid stock small tires for the original Vicky, or hollow wide custom tires. And here are the wheel and tire parts that you'll use. Now, I decided to use the wide rear tires and the stock tires for the front to give this rod a natural rake, and more in the style of modern street rods. Back in the 70s, big wide tires were found on all four. Now, I used the backing plates on the rear, but with the disc brake detail in front, I left the wheels open. So you're going to want to trim the backs of the wheel studs there, the hub studs, to tuck these tires in a little closer to the body, which is part of the aim here for the fronts and the rears. Let's turn our attention to the body. We're going to clean that up, including some parting lines that you find here on the rear fender and trunk area. So go ahead, look it over, and smooth anything out that needs to be cleaned up. For my street rod version, I decided to cut the hood side curtains away, and I also removed the hinge from the top of the hood so that it looks like a solid hood top as you find on modern street rods. Another modification made was to cut the spare tire cover right in half with a razor saw, and these are going to be the wheel wells in the rear of the vehicle. Now you can see that the inner fender walls there have been cut away, and the new homemade fender wells have been glued into position made from the spare tire carrier. This is because we need a little extra room here to tuck those tires in under the fenders. After the glue is dried, you can go ahead and smooth out that cut and paint that. You can just use a hand brush because it's barely visible on the inside of on the other side of the wheel anyway. I used a pin vise here to prep the windows and a small drill bit to put a little hole at the top of the area there for mounting a rear view mirror that I'll get out of the parts box. And here you see all of the parts that will be used to assemble the next step. And so the mirror gets detailed with a little flat black on the back, and then a small dab of tube glue to mount it into that hole we drilled. The window surrounds are painted a semi-gloss black here, and along with the wipers, and the firewall is orange. Now the windows then with the mirror in it just snap into place, as well as the interior bucket. So scrape any of the paint away that you need to glue the window surround and the firewall into position. In keeping with our sleek look, I'm going to remove the filler cap and the emblem there from the grill surround, and then we're going to paint that, and then the grill area itself will have a little black wash applied to it. So once that black wash is dried, you can go ahead and take the top layer off with your fingertip or something smooth, and then go ahead and dab of glue on the back side, scrape the chrome, and push that into position. Well, things are coming together rapidly here, as you can see. We've got major assembly done here. You're going to go ahead and locate the body onto the fenders, and really everything just kind of snapped into position on their receivers, etc. But you could use a little glue if needed, and locate the hood and the grills and surround into position. Now just go ahead and make sure that you clean off any paint before you glue that in place. And of course, locate those wheels onto the axle hubs. Make sure you get the rears on the rear and the fronts on the front. And you'll see that on the fenders, there the receivers for the headlight bar are highlighted in chrome. Okay, we're going to finish up the back end here by adding the chrome gas cap there. And I used some spare parts box pieces, some custom taillights to put on the fenders there. Instead of the stock one that's attached to the spare tire carrier mounting bar. And also I used a piece of that chrome stock that I had told you about for the front spreader bar, and made one for the rear as well. And lastly, of course, a license plates to make us legal. Next, we're going to take the chrome headlight lenses. Make sure you align those so that the lines are vertical. the up and down lines, and so that they're oriented properly. And glue those in with some white glue there and let those dry. Then scrape off the chrome from where they are mounted onto those receivers on the fenders and install that into position. So here are the parts left over from the kit. You can see there's quite a few. There's Phaeton parts, up tops, another set of bigs and littles for your stash, different engine choice, and just pieces that weren't used in this kit at all. There you have it. Your kit is complete, and she's a nice looking example of a modern street rod from the venerable 32 Ford Vicky. And as I mentioned, you can build the Vicky, the standard stock version, right out of the box. But I thought it'd be nice to make this into something that's a little bit nicer, since I was kind of disappointed that the parts for the Jalopy stock car weren't in the kit. So I went ahead and kind of did some modeling magic, which really isn't that hard to do. It's a straightforward kit. It's fairly easy to build, and the parts fit together pretty well. So well that I didn't even need glue for the assembly of the major components. So if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf. Well, we hope you liked the step-by-step model kit build and review, and so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the icon in the lower right hand of any of our videos. And you can find us on Facebook or our website, rightonreplicas.com. Thanks.